It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So, a good performance from both teams.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. On the show, on one hand is India celebrating Jasprit Bumrah's captaincy in men's cricket and the fearless youngsters who not only came out of the trial by fire unscathed but conquered a fortress like Perth. And then on the other hand, Australia is facing a lot of questions and criticisms. The Aussie media has clobbered the team and player Josh Hazlewood's comments have not exactly helped. Is there a rift in the Aussie dressing room? Many former cricketers think so. Dinglish, meanwhile, draws first blood in the World Chess Championship, coming on the heels of several losses and pitted against the favourite, D. Gukesh. Lijan has taken up the lead. How will Gukesh tackle this threat going forward? Meanwhile, North Korea and Russia strengthen their ties when it comes to sports sectors as well. Will this move wake up Russia's sporting structure that has been in a bit of a slumber? And how will it impact the rest of the world? But first, let's take a look at the headlines. We'll begin with cricket. The International Cricket Council, or the ICC, is set to meet on the 29th of November to discuss the road ahead for next year's Champions Trophy that's supposed to be held in Pakistan. The meeting comes in the wake of India's refusal to travel for the event, as the PCB officials have been reluctant to host the event in a hybrid model. Reports say ICC wants to ensure that the event goes ahead with India's attendance. And continuing with cricket, Ivory Coast recorded the lowest total in a men's T20 international. The country managed to score just 7 runs, chasing 272 to win in their T20 World Cup Africa sub-regional qualifier against Nigeria. They surpassed the previous, which was just 10 runs, that was jointly held by Mongolia and the Isle of Man. Onto the Border-Gavaskar Trophy, India's head coach Gautam Gambhir is flying back home from Australia due to a family emergency. Gambhir will miss India's 2-day practice match in Canberra against the Prime Minister's 11. He's expected to rejoin the squad before the start of the second test in Adelaide, which is the 6th of December. In football, Cristiano Ronaldo scored a brace in Al Nassr's 3-1 win over Qatari club Al Gharafa in the AFC Champions League Elite Tournament. The win means Al Nassr are now closer to securing a quarter-final berth. They need 2 points from the remaining 3 games to qualify. In the Premier League, Newcastle's 3-match winning run came to an end after losing to West Ham 2-0. West Ham notched up their 4th win in 12 matches this season with this one. And summing it up with news from Formula One, Cadillac, owned by General Motors, is set to become the 11th team in Formula One from the 2026 season onwards. Formula One also confirmed that General Motors will enter as an engine supplier. The sport has had 10 teams and 20 drivers on the grid since 2017. Australia is licking its wounds after the men's cricket team stumbled against India in the first test at Perth. They crumbled to a humiliating loss, a huge margin of just a little less than 300 runs, and it came about on day 4 of the test. I'll come to this in just a bit, but to give you a bit of context, let's look at what the media said. The Australian media did not hold back. They have been brutal and harsh, and they dished that out to the Aussie cricket team this time. The Sydney Morning Herald called the test a sight of one-way traffic, saying the team was not prepared and questioned the mental aptitude of the Australian team, saying Australia, that prides itself on being composite and clear thinking right through, were put under trouble. They looked lost throughout, especially from the moment Jasprit Bumrah destroyed their top order on the first evening of the game. That's what I had termed to be the turning point of the match too. His searing spell off the blocks, a fitting response to 150. Herald's Sun called it pathetic, humiliation. Others termed it a reality check dealt to the Aussies with a monster loss such as this one. The Sydney Morning Herald lauded the Indian batters, particularly Yashasvi Jaiswal, and Jasprit Bumrah, who have given the Aussie nightmares. Fox Sports, of course, said this was ominous signs of things to come in this series. The remarks have been scathing, and what has not helped Australia is the comment that one of their players, their bowlers, in fact, Josh Hazlewood, made at the end of day 3 of the test.
You probably have to ask one of the batters that question. I'm probably looking mostly towards the next test.
The match wasn't over just then. It wasn't concluded. It was still day 3. Yes, they were staring at defeat, imminent defeat at that, chasing a massive target there. But those exactly were the words Hazlewood decided to make. A statement that has not been taken too kindly to, especially by former Aussie cricketer Adam Gilchrist, who responded saying this looks like a rift in the Australian team dressing room.
I wonder if there's a divide in Andrew McDonald's team between the batters and bowlers.
Adam Gilchrist clearly saying that there could be something amiss, especially when a bowler comes and makes that kind of a statement, pointing fingers at the batting that let them down. And Michael Vaughan, former England cricketer, isn't one to also hold back when there is a raging debate that he can fan further.
Publicly, I've never heard an Australian divide the camp into batters and bowlers like that. It's unusual to hear an Australian cricketer publicly shift focus to the next game before this one is finished.
Yes, Vaughan really summing that up very well. Two things really stand out in that statement that Hazlewood made. One, of course, almost seemingly pointing fingers at the batters for having let them down in this test. And then saying, even before the test match concluded, that he was already thinking about the second test. Now, of course, Hazlewood may have made that statement and that kind of a statement out of some level of frustration. It's understandable, but that definitely is not the sort of response you'd expect. While the team is clearly staring at defeat, Australia has not been in such a position ever, where they have been handed a loss, and right there at the start itself, despite dismissing the opposition for 150 on the very first day. But I guess that's what the difference really was. While Josh Hazlewood made a flippant remark there saying these questions should have been addressed to the batters of his team and not him, whose role is just to bowl. This is what Jasprit Bumrah, the captain who was leading India for that test, ended up saying at the end of that test.
The message was, we will be nice and disciplined, and we will make run making as difficult as we can, because that is what has worked in the past over here as well. When we are able to do that, that gives us a lot of success. So that was the message that was passed.
Be nice, be disciplined. That's what Bumrah says. He truly stepped up as a leader and did not make it about the low score that his team, the batters, made. He led from the front and they played like a perfect unit. In fact, safe to say it was his inspiring spell on the first day that would have fired up the Indian team to put on one of the best shows by batters at Perth. Inspired a youngster to take guard and take the attack to the Aussies in Yashasvi Jaiswal. Inspired a man under fire to finally shut his critics in Virat Kohli. That's what a winning team looks like. Pat Cummins, on the other hand, at the end of the test on day 4, of course, did the due diligence by rubbishing all claims of a possible divide in his camp between the batters and the bowlers, saying there was no problem, and this was in fact one of the tightest units he's ever been a part of in Australia. Now, the Adelaide test is a while away, and guess what? Reports say Australia will remain unchanged for the day and night test and for that second test. They are determined to make a comeback in this series with the personnel they have. But one thing I can say with certainty, only one team has truly shown the spirit of the game to fight and play hard, and that's not been Australia. The quest to becoming the world chess champion got underway in Singapore. Yesterday, it was an under-fire Ding Liren up against red-hot D. Gukesh. And Liren has stunned his Indian opponent Gukesh in the opening round of the face-off. Just to give you an idea of how the format really works in this particular challenge, both contenders will face each other 14 times. There will be 14 classical games. Each game will have a 120-minute time control for the first 40 moves. If the game's not yet done till then, followed by a 30-minute time control for the remainder of the game then, followed by a 30-second increment for every move that's made post the 41st. Now, heading into this mega showdown, the odds, of course, were heavily stacked against China's Li Zhen. Gukesh has been considered the clear favourite by many to win this. Li Zhen himself, in fact, accepted that Gukesh was indeed better placed to come out victorious at this event. So this 1-0 lead in the 14-match competition comes as a bit of a surprise. Sure, there's a long way to go in the tournament and it wouldn't be a cakewalk, particularly for Gukesh. But Li Zhen's victory has set the tone for the rest of the championships. He's made it pretty clear that the current world champion isn't going to go down quietly. This victory is only going to boost Li Zhen's morale, something world number 1 Magnus Carlsen in fact predicted just before the face-off.
I think Ding will get the first big chance. Ding cannot lose the first game. What I hope to see in that sense is what we had with Ding against Nepomniachtchi, where they just kept trading blows. We could see a bloodbath. I could see a scenario where Ding gets 2 or 3 massive chances in the first 5-6 games, and he absolutely has to take them.
Carlsen had in fact even predicted that the only way Li Zhen could gain any edge here is if he started well, especially when the past 1 year hasn't really been easy for Li Zhen. He came back from a long break due to mental fatigue, and ever since then, we haven't really seen the best of this Chinese player. The chess Olympiad, in fact, that concluded right before this particular tournament, this particular face-off, the World Championship, in fact, saw Li Zhen struggle to find his rhythm. China did its best to shield their player. Li Zhen even withdrew from his face-off with Gukesh during the Olympiad. From what it seems, though, it probably was an act of preserving him for the big face-off, the championship. And seems like he started off on the right foot. This despite winning just 3 games in the last 12 months. But the point that Li Zhen would want to remember is that out of this, his 3 wins the last 1 year, 2 came against Gukesh.
When playing chess, I do not consider other things. Maybe last year I didn't play so well, but I think that when we come to the stage to play chess, we need to forget about other things. This was his first world championship, so he might have been nervous. So I played something unusual, which I haven't played for a long time.
Li Zhen admits he pulled off an unusual game, something he hadn't in a long time, and spoke about Gukesh possibly experiencing the nerves at this big stage. It is in fact his first time. After losing the battle, Gukesh had his head in his hands. He could have been a bit shaken about starting off on such a note. It is quite normal for an 18-year-old to feel dejected after a jolt in the first round. But what we have seen in the past is Gukesh's ability to bounce right back, make strong comebacks. He may just be a teenager, but the youngster has the mental fortitude to forget the setbacks, put that aside, and look to get back on track. Something the Indian prodigy managed to do at the candidates as well.
The lowest moment was the round 7 loss against Alireza. I was just kicking myself for repeating the same mistake that I had done before. But also it kind of, I recovered very quickly from that. And even the next day after the game, I felt in very good spirits. And that was probably the highest moment, the rest day after the round 7 loss.
And we all know what happened after that. Gukesh went on to become the youngest candidates champion. The loss, of course, acted as the fuel to inspire Gukesh to go the distance and achieve this feat and become, in fact, the youngest world championship challenger too. And this time he isn't alone. He has an experienced mental conditioning coach by his side, Paddy Upton, who will help him stay focused right through the tournament. A coach who was part of India's Cricket World Cup triumph in 2011 and, of course, was also with the Indian hockey men's bronze winning team at the Paris Games. Li Zhen's win hasn't just brought the tournament alive, but has also given Gukesh a bit of a wake-up call, a first hiccup, and a reminder that this is going to be a bit of a battle. It's going to be a bloodbath that everyone is watching nervously. India versus China has just gotten very interesting. Russia has found a new friend in North Korea as the bilateral ties between the two nations continue to strengthen. Putin's strict regime is complementing the diplomatic steps of Kim Jong-un. While the defense ties between the two have sparked international alarm, sports isn't too far behind and is set to prove the intimacy between the two countries. The sports ministry of both these nations, in fact, met in North Korea's capital of Pyongyang to discuss steps to be taken across sporting sectors. It's also believed that the two have signed a protocol for sports exchanges in 2025. Given the rest of the world has cornered Russia ever since its Ukraine invasion, and North Korea has practically been in reclusivity when it comes to sporting ventures beyond the big events, are Putin and Kim Jong-un using diplomatic ties to resurrect and strengthen their sporting cultures? That's in a bit of a slumber. A report.
An emotional goodbye between the supreme leaders of Russia and North Korea is raising concerns for the rest of the world. Putin's visit to North Korea earlier this year confirmed the strengthening ties between the two countries. And it did not take long for North Korea and Russia to solidify their interests in the sporting world in an attempt to gain some lost ground. While the rest of the world, that includes prominent sporting bodies like FIFA and the IOC, have banned Russia ever since its invasion of Ukraine, North Korea is busy signing sports protocols for exchanges with Russia set to take place next year, a move that is designed to strengthen the sporting ties between these two countries. While the details have not been made public just yet, much like the diplomatic discussions, Russia's sports minister announced that he has promised a Russian-Korean Summer Games on a biennial basis. Now we know why the Russian delegation had also toured the North Korean stadiums to take a look at their sporting infrastructure. Safe to say, the Russia-Korea ties are going to bring back Russian sports from its slumber, something the country needs desperately. Sports has always been a tool for soft power politics, and ever since the IOC and FIFA have imposed their ban on Russia, the country has been forced to play their matches against lower-ranked sides. A huge setback for a nation that hosted the FIFA World Cup not too long ago in 2018 and the Winter Olympic Games in 2014. So the sporting ties is clearly Russia's way of trying to gain some ground when it comes to their sporting industry. The biennial games is just one step forward in Putin's plans to revive the dormant sporting sphere in his country. But what impact will this new relationship have on the rest of the world? Because the strategic partnership treaty that the two countries signed has put both South Korea and America on alert. With the relations between North Korea and Russia growing, North Korea has sent military equipment and more than 10,000 troops to the Russian border, which South Korea feels is in breach of multiple sanctions imposed by the United Nations Security Council. And while the sporting ties may raise alarm bells for the rest of the world, North Korea and Russia are only set to gain from this move. On one hand is a country that is cornered by major sporting bodies, and on the other, a country that's in hibernation. In North Korea, the lack of international exposure is consistent across every sport. Just recently, they won the Under-20 Women's World Cup title. So clearly, if Russia continues to organize sporting events, North Korea will only benefit from facing top-quality Russian teams. This new alliance in the sporting world of two superpowers whose superpowers have been put on hold is bound to create some friction across various aspects including sports, a space that many other countries will be watching closely.
Time for last serve. Taiwanese fans celebrated their team's baseball softball confederation gold medal. Taiwan beat favourites Japan and ended their 27-game winning streak. Take a look. That wraps it up here on First Sports. I'll, of course, join you tomorrow, same time to Lynn. Take care.